Africa's readiness for the inevitable future, processes, systems, organizational, behavioral, and cultural integration. Dear conference organizers, distinguished participants and speakers, it's a great pleasure to be in your midst today amongst illustrious industrial engineers. My name is Azukaego Chukwuelue. I'm a supply chain professional and I've been in the commercial space for upwards of 22 years. I am a mother of 4, a wife, and a homemaker. I'm passionate about continuous improvement, women advancement in the workplace, as well as gender inclusion, equality, and diversity. I love traveling, I love reading, I love self-development, and I'm very passionate about nation building. Anything that involves Africa keeps me on my toes. In school, I've always loved to be in the presence of industrial engineers, as I've always been in love with creating machines that simplify processes. More so, I enjoy the aura around the Brainiacs and the Einsteins, where I always had to think deep and calculate ahead just to catch the jokes. Did I study engineering, you ask? No. The answer is no. I decided to be future forward and study biochemistry, and then I became a supply chain professional. As a supply chain professional, I get to be an operational expert and a business professional at the same time, by looking at the supply chain end-to-end from demand generation to demand fulfillment. I get to wear the hat of an expert who understands the operations holistically, orchestrating procedures and systems to improve efficiency, reduce waste, and optimize cost of doing business. Of course, without going through the hurdle of a BA engineering degree, I therefore imagine what you could achieve with the design knowledge sitting in this room. And I challenge you all to look at yourselves as supply chain professionals with the added merit of an industrial engineer, one who allows themselves to design systems that enable people and society to improve productivity. Of course, added to that, improving efficiency, effectiveness, and quality, and also developing human capability to operate, manage, and control the overall production systems, while ensuring that safety and the well-being of those working in the system is achievable. This definition is as described by the Department of Industrial Engineering of the Dalhousie University in Canada. Basically, a mastermind. Synonyms for mastermind include a genius mind, intellect, director, planner, architect, author, who engineers. Synonyms for engineers: brings about, cause, pull off, bring up, set up, plot or fix solutions to major and complex world problems. I mean, look at it today. The whole world as we know it is modeled in supply chain issues, and the skills required today are skills that improve processes, reduce wastes, increase output, and save companies money while working effectively in very diverse teams to generate results. Whether it be in the automobile industry, entertainment, shipping and logistics, distribution of products worldwide, healthcare, or media, just to name a few. Industrial engineering is one of the most versatile subjects that is applied to every area of life. Assist supply chain, as you all know. Today, what the world needs is more efficient and profitable business practices, the ability to do more with less, digital optimization and digitalization, you would say, the ability to make work more exciting, more rewarding, less time-consuming, and less risky. Of course, this refers to infrastructure, innovation, and government policies. The ability to help companies produce optimal quality, get to the markets more quickly, and reduce the costs associated with production, product design, and localization, as you well know. Then, of course, to scale innovative technologies that will have an impact on the environment and be high on the ESG goals. While the world has a gaping need for opportunities in several areas, Africa has a deficit in almost all aspects of the developing world, despite the potential in the markets. The issues plaguing Africa, the continent, include strong population with a low GDP and high unemployment, large arable land and low productivity or ability to feed its people. An example is that the US has a cultivated area of circa 1.3 million acres, with equivalent to 2 million farms, supported by the government to enable food production across the United States. This is compared to Africa, which holds 60% of the world's arable land, with a huge landmass that remains uncultivated, is a significant deficit, as Africa produces only 10% of the world's agricultural output, a major pain point for Africa, although having 33 million smallholder farms with very marginal government support. Furthermore, a large youth population with an average age of 19.4 years in the whole of Africa, but low ratio in the educated population and high unemployment ratios impacting innovation, technology, adoption and growth. The above issues are also the same factors that create room for Africa to thrive. So we must see it as positives, not negatives. We must see this as opportunities. The massive challenges today include the lack of digitalization or digital optimization, or not lack for want of a better word, maybe the low adoption of. The challenges around the difficulty in localization and making Africa a focus, or made in Africa as a focus. They need to build machines that make other machines which will be used to make products locally. For me, this is a major one. Until we as Africans can manufacture in Africa, can love manufactured or made in Africa, we are still very far away. So basically, a product pyramid that looks at processing raw materials for use, building the machines that will convert the raw materials into finished goods, and making the spares to continue maintaining the machines. Other issues include poor infrastructure, suboptimal transportation, poor road, sea and air network, inadequacy of the industries, the existing industries, of course ESG issues and disaster management. While it seems industrial engineering should be the most sought after in countries at the peak of their industrialization, the argument is two sides. There are two sides of the coin, really. Most African countries are yet to be industrialized and basically act as raw material hub or as commercial hub for exporting raw materials to the rest of the world, as we all know, where it is provided back as input for Africa. However, Africa is now at the precipice, whether we like it or not. Why so? Because right now, the rest of the world has an aging demographic. One of the reasons. In more advanced nations and in the Western society, people are living longer due to the high rate of industrialization. They, however, have lower fertility rates, so they're giving birth to less children. The implication is that they have an aging population and an inadequate workforce. For industry to work and for economy to keep growing on the industry they have, a young and able workforce is critical to run the machines. As a result, most of the Western countries must outsource. Therein lies the issue of industrialization for Africa. It's a serendipitous issue. If we don't want it to happen, it's going to happen because of the issues in other climes. So as a result, outsourcing must happen. The Western countries will outsource, bringing in young people, which is what we see in mass immigration to the West from various parts of Africa. These issues have always been there, so they're not new, but only now exacerbated by a highly VUCA world, as my lecturers will say. So very diverse, highly diverse, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world with a lot of disruption, as we saw with COVID-19. Of course, the disruption started years earlier, a decade earlier, but the culmination was with the pandemic. So in essence, the world is looking for people to come to the fore and take the horns of leadership. People with strong educational backgrounds, including mathematics, engineering, technological skills, understanding of production and design processes, understanding of data and product design, who have strong administration and management background, including strong financial acumen, and who have the innate ability and willingness to transfer the knowledge. Added to this are soft skills like very strong people skills, empathy, listening and communication, work ethics, conflict management or conflict resolution, teamwork, leadership qualities, time management, decision making, critical thinking, etc. Also, complex problem solving, judgment and decision making, deductive reasoning, amongst others, which are then useful in operational analysis, materials management, process and system design, productivity, profitability, P&L management, and of course, continuous improvement in a variety of industries. A strong understanding of the market is then an icing of the cake, on the cake. So if you look at all of this, basically, the world is looking for self-aware individuals that are motivating, are self-motivating, self-directing, individuals that lead with the head and the heart, individuals who are able to make a difference and who can match the disruption that we're going to have in the near future, whether we like it or not. To bring it home, Africa as an industrialization hub in the very near future is here today. By the way, the very near future show progressions of 10 to 15 years, but I can tell you that it's already started today. You all can see it around. What is, however, most interesting to note for us as Africans or those living in Africa is that we can no longer stay on the sidelines. No, we can't. It's, how do I put it? It's either you go with the flow, jump into the bus at the next station, or you'll be swept on. It's either we are overtaking or remain, which is what we must, in the forefront of these developments, which will be driven by serendipitous issues, such as population explosion, like we've shown before, versus aging workforce in the West. Emerging markets and growth needs for multinationals. This is where the growth agenda is for the multinationals. The Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, or even a pandemic, which forces behavioral adoption that would otherwise have taken decades to achieve. I mean, the technological adoption was wow. I mean, it's still amazing. We all know that the budgets that we needed to sign and we had been pushing for to sign for all these years for systems for everybody, for internet connectivity for everyone, happened overnight without the push. And of course, the issue of population implosion, that also comes to the fore. As the world ages, Africa continues to grow in population. As that population increases, it is becoming more attractive for there to be an industrialization of Africa for both companies and African governments. Africa is expected to go through a population boom of 200%, 200%, I think that was it, in the next 100 years. So growth rate looks like 750 million people estimated by the 2100. Which is quite noticeable for immigration of young people, because the Nigerian population was circa 100 million at the beginning of the 80s. It went as far as 200 million, I think, a growth rate of 33% currently, and projected to grow up to 350 million or 400 million by 2050. South Africa started at about 20 million in the 80s, 37 million in the 90s, and are now at circa 60 million, correct? As at the last census in 2019, with an employment rate of 28.7%. These numbers are from statistica.com. The US and China with population rate of circa 350 million and 1.4 billion respectively have unemployment rates of 4.2% and 6.7% respectively. That's the disparity we have today. So this is basically, is just giving the background to precede that the world will need more able-bodied people to support industrialized nations. And when that is available, when that is not available, what will happen is that these industrialized nations will start shifting production to areas where there is available labor. It's not just cheap labor, but available labor. However, we also know that the immigration laws will not support all the required immigrants that will keep the country at the balance required. What happened in China? The conversation between China and the US, where they start outsourcing their labor. So manufacturers found it easier to keep their sourcing plants and production points in China than to keep it in America because there were more people, there was more affordable labor. But the fact remains that it would not be enough. The industries will move to Africa because the population growth and the demographic imbalance in the developed nations will make it necessary to do so. And then, what will be very important is to find localized talent, as this will be the next hub of industrialization. The startup of that industrialization means for us that the skill set of an industrial engineer will be valued. Why, you may ask? Companies need to start small while they are growing big. They need to maintain status quo to get the best for their buck. While we need to make new, companies will still have someone who understands the terrain enough to provide solutions that can apply specifically to those transition occasions. It is becoming more necessary to find localized talent because those talents understand the critical needs required to move from existing low infrastructure states to future stable states. Fixing this deficit will require the making of new materials and designing same into products that require designing machines to make other machines. So designing the products that will fix deficits will require making machines that will make the machines that will produce them. So for companies to move into the right mindset, they need the right kind of skill set, and the skill set is no longer enough to know the job, but understand the market and the needs and solutions that lie in the market. This is the most important skill set. People who have the knowledge, exposure, and temperament to convert Africa to where the developed nations are and beyond. It's no longer just about what we can create or what we can make. It's more about how you can put basic building blocks together to make the best out of what has been created. You could create it yourself or optimize whatever you're trying to create, ensuring that there is the underlying need to improve processes, optimize efficiency, and minimize cost and impact on the environment. So I'm saying a lot, but the truth is that industrial engineering, now more than ever, requires managers who are business-minded, who understand the business goals, who understand that the overall perspective of the system in trying to build and to ensure that the system is in the best possible optimized position end to end. An example is how the power distribution system works. In Nigeria, for instance, an electrical engineer is required to set it up. But in the case of my country, if you want to get the best value for your buck, you have to call in an industrial engineer to come and look at the whole system from top-line view to understand how to use what we currently have to give the best overall output, which involves not only setting up the distribution lines, but also ensuring the right setup for transmission to business and residential areas. That's basically the idea of what it has moved into now. Some companies try to look at it from a more technical point of view. But whether we like it or not, we need systems that work together where we can get the best out of it based on the use cases available. So, we all know that industrial engineers use their knowledge and skills to improve systematic processes, using statistical analysis, interpersonal communication, design planning, quality control, operations management, computer simulation, and problem solving. What this means for the future is that we're on schedule and we can all have the right mixes overall to be the next China. Ethiopia is on track, though they have not done everything right, but they have the infrastructure to begin. We must really wear our thinking hats. We as industrial engineers must be at the forefront, not negotiable. Look at the emerging market dynamics. Looking at the supply chain, we see that most FMCGs have seen the current trend that emerging markets like India, Asia, and Africa are the future for exponential growth. Even the startups have seen the opportunity to provide solutions for financial settlements. The four biggest finance settlement platforms are African originated. So the issue plaguing the region right now are being solved by these fintechs and growing this into billion-dollar businesses. Paystack, Ipesa, Slack. In the same vein, there are lots of opportunity in the logistics, transportation, distribution, and inventory management space. With regards to communication, visibility, availability of infrastructure, and access to resources. As policies become more stringent in African countries and companies are beginning to localize production and manufacturing. Toyota is creating more manufacturing hubs in Africa, as we all know. Kimberly-Clark has built a multi-million-dollar plant in Nigeria to cater for West and other African countries. That's what I spent the last 2 years doing. It's clear. We have young people. More young people need more cars and more diapers because they are making families. Africa with a growing population is where the demand will be. It is cost effective to make this here, and making in Africa is a win-win for the region and the manufacturers as more volumes, growing demand, is what it's all about. It's what drives business continuity. So governments in the region will more enforce localization and backward integration. And companies will be more incentivized to provide the requisite solutions required that cater to the emerging market needs, which means the creation of more industrial points across Africa. Let's take an example. Australia, for instance, has a population of 25 million people, vis-a-vis the population of Nigeria, which is 8 times that. So selling to 25% of the total population of Nigeria will give more sales revenue than selling to 100% of the Australian markets, even with the attendant or associated costs and quality issues. Now I refer to baby diapers. It is therefore clear that companies will be looking at Africa as a major expansion hub in AMEA, a growth lever for their businesses. This in turn will drive the need for industrial engineers because we have to fabricate those machines. We can't import everything. Of course, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, geopolitical competition, US versus BRICS. China is exposed to Africa, and this exposure is tied to infrastructure, which they are providing already. The China and US competition will define trade in the future. US territory of Guam overlooks the Strait of Malacca, which accounts for 50% of Chinese GDP exports. They're not sleeping. They're awake. They're looking for solutions. China is worried about this. The US and its allies' influence or presence in Guam. So China will construct artificial islands around this to narrow the straits and reduce access. But the main driver will be to construct access across Africa, highways, trains, road networks, to enable trade, because they need to find a solution. They need to find another option. So again, we must realize that our hands are tied. These are serendipitous events. These alternate routes enabling the link to key African countries like Djibouti, the choke points, where there is access to the Gulf of Aden, so the Suez Canal can be used between Pacific and Atlantic at lower travel times for raw material from Africa to China and vice versa. It's expected to drive significant improvement in trade. I mean, we really need to look at these issues. We really need to see these issues. Going beyond other factors, let's look at it in various areas. Emerging technologies, big data, granular level data, a huge opportunity in Africa. We all know the data is hard to find. So ability to collect the data and get info that enables business solutions, cloud computing, IoT, sensors allowing status of things, These miniature sensors, make a real difference in how life is. It allows for modern connectors on a chip to connect to the internet, which will enable asset tracking, quality checks, temperature checks, vaccine logistics, etc. More importantly, we enable the ease of operation for hitherto difficult to achieve tasks, which, if we get right, will accelerate very quickly our manufacturing processes. So somebody sitting in Lagos, Nigeria, can be operating a forklift somewhere in the western part of Nigeria. Automation and autonomous vehicles. Very interesting, because what this means is that we have remote management of several jobs. We have more initially difficult to access or male-dominated or stereotype roles being accessible by many other people. It means more employment for women in Africa. This narrative significantly expand the meaning of medium, small, and micro enterprises. Of course, the fintechs, the enabling, payment structures or solutions. And of course, the advancement in trade will also be disruptive, and the fintech will look for faster solutions of payment. We need to watch that space in Africa because the solutions are very quick because of the use cases available. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This and the benefits, as well as the doors it will open, allowing a global phenomenon to happen within Africa, will enable the need to source across all economic zones. As we make in Africa, African nations will find it increasingly easier to trade with each other. What more can we ask for? So it's really a push, whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. Global supply chains and globalization, plus issues of the pandemic, enabling deglobalization further. The mRNA has up to 218 components sourced from 90 countries. Another meds, meaning this kind of products will become an area of challenge for users who now realize the complexity of sourcing of all of this from different parts of the world. So it's deglobalization. Countries want to manufacture themselves. Look at the issues with 3D masks. Look at the issues with sanitizers. Look at how Africa, South Africa particularly, went into making the ventilators. Very quickly, South Africa was at the forefront of making the ventilators when it became scarce in Africa. It's the globalization all the way. So the issues impacting the readiness or the industrialization of Africa is out of our control. And the foresight and the understanding of that is where we need the industrial engineers to come in. Dangote thrives by using the advantage of local policies, thereby providing assets, industrial locations close to the raw materials in African nations, and getting the support of various governments who understand the benefit of having these industries in their domain. One major area of concern is that we as industrial engineers must be at the forefront of development. I pause here for this to sink in. We can't hide in our comfort zones anymore. We cannot hide in our niche areas. Our voices need to be heard. Our expertise and experiences need to be visible. Associations like Southern African Institute for Industrial Engineering, SAIIE, are doing a fantastic job of making this happen and putting the strengths of the profession in the face of the stakeholders, while at the same time building capability and enabling capacity building and networking. So, it's a lot of foresight that SAIIE has seen. They understand what the future means for industrial engineers. And so the strategic positioning is very relevant to what the future holds. Some areas that will ensure a win for the industrial engineers include, as I see it, this is my picture. Feel free to add your views, but this is my view. Value creation, design of products and services that are fit for Africa, fit for our growing supply chain or maturing supply chains, fit for our consumption patterns, fit for our power capability, fit for our technological capability. The area of R&D spend, little R&D spend, continues to plague Africa. There's an opportunity for industrial engineers to collectively drive the public and the private sector to invest in research and development by showing what is possible. This is the time to be in the face of government, in the face of the private sector, in the face of everyone who wants to listen, foreign partners, to say, this is what Africa can make. This is what can come out of Africa. Because the funding needs to happen. The funding for R&D. The funding for prototyping. Low skill base. Capability building cannot be negotiated. Not anymore. We as a continent have a deficit in almost all areas of development. That while it's our strength, it's also our opportunity. While it's our weakness, it's also our opportunity. A big part of that is low connectivity with higher institutions. A big opportunity there. How do we get the right level of education in our higher institutions? How do we make our higher institutions more practical? Connect to the real issues plaguing the continent. Digitalization, collaboration, innovation and ideation hubs. Sitting in several parts of the continent and countries, delivering value in different areas. Some parts of the continent are far more advanced than other parts of the continent. How do we make this work? Packaging design and prototype design, etc. How do we make this workflow based? How can we digitize all of this? And how can we transmit the learnings across different parts of the continent? How can we make easy to digitize services around the value chain for physical and non-physical goods via collaborative technologies? How can we drive rapid prototyping and open sourcing of innovation? Because this is required, as making machines that make other machines is what we need to get comfortable with to ensure localization and backward integration. Imagine the potential we can unlock when we process our raw materials ourselves. Continuous education is a must, and open-mindedness is very vital culture for the current future. It's amazing to know that a lot of companies in Africa still import shrink film, outer wrappers, corrugates. Where do we start from? These are low-hanging fruits. So we need to go back to the drawing table, because it's the simple things as well as the major issues. And of course, ease of trading. Sheer numbers of growth in smartphone acquisition and broadband data penetration through mobile means that everyone has, or a whole more number of people have what you call the TVs or the smartphones in their hands, meaning more information, more demand. The consumer is getting more mature. Then of course the digital strategy and SMEs are in the forefront of driving the economy. So there will be a lot of demand, and meeting those demands has a very fundamental implication in industrial engineering. Then of course, value delivery, supply chain operations, a big space, a big opportunity. Distribution efficiency, impacting affordability, infrastructural gaps, power, road networks, rail, access to financial solutions, limited plug-and-play options. We have to create for Africa. It's difficult to plug and play. We'll prototype, we'll borrow knowledge, but we have to make for Africa what is. We can't plug and play what is used in a mature supply chain right here now. It's not gonna work. So we need to design and develop specific solutions for our specific use cases. Investments required at every level with high interest rates. It's not sustainable. Sustainable solutions will mean solutions that will be relevant to today, to the state we are, with the ability to scale. Cost of replacement borne by SMEs, no investment, no support infrastructure. So SMEs needs to be supported by ensuring that there are local solutions. An example is co-locating partners via building supply chains that are local. Remember Coca-Cola proliferated local supply chain, their providers, their tech and concentrates, cross-licensing of materials, etc. Local solutions, because what we currently run is not sustainable. We must enable local distribution, enabled by tech. We must ensure control and coordination of systems due to models that allow them to be called up at any time through the internet. So manufacturing capability here can be monitored from anywhere in the world. Modern and digital technologies need to be put to use. We must attract foreign direct investment, but we must develop what we need to attract. So manufacturing technology, manufacturing innovation, So there's just so much. We have our constraints, product pricing impacted by exchange rates, That's a big challenge for us, but we have so many opportunities. If we start manufacturing locally, that challenge starts going away gradually. Then think about agriculture. Agriculture for me is just an untapped area. We hold a significant amount of arable land, but we contribute very low to the World Food Program. Imagine the change we can make with the right machines. What is holding us back? I was watching an interesting documentary from Hyundai, the hydrogen wave technology, hydrogen fuel cell EV as a source of renewable energy, such that commercial vehicles will not use diesel. They will use only hydrogen. Hydrogen expels wastes, the waste it expels is water. That's the bioproducts. So you can imagine the implication for this on extreme weather, on combating climate change, making a carbon neutral society very feasible, implications for combating global warming. That's a whole shift in dynamics. Imagine the diesel consumption in Africa. That's just disrupting the whole status quo. Then, of course, added to that, in logistics transportation, it's a bold move because it's also shown that the same hydrogen EV can be used in trailers, which will enable for short fueling times. That's faster delivery. And it will enable for long travel times without refueling, and even when the fuel is needed, very short fueling times. Look at our logistics today. The trucks can go for only a few hundred kilometers, but needs to refuel. So this allows for quicker time in delivery, volume turnaround, and increased durability and coverage. Then, of course, production, storage, and transportation convenience. Very beneficial for infrastructural development. So the opportunities are major. Future opportunities of future technology out of the whole hydrogen fuel EV solution is rescue drones that can extinguish fires and save lives. It could be used for trains and trams. As long as we can generate excess energy, it can be stored as hydrogen. In fact, what interested me the most was the e-bogie. Like shipping robots. They're actually trucks, but they're autonomous, and then they have the electric chassis powered by hydrogen. And then they can maneuver into funny spaces, carrying containers, adding together to carry several containers, disconnecting to carry one container. And their low profile allows them to carry shipping containers into any space. This is breakthrough in the logistics space. Imagine that coming into Africa. Imagine us building the infrastructures that will enable that work in Africa. I agree there's systemic risk. I will be one of those who will tell you, yes, there's systemic risk. Inflation, macro issues, other idiosyncratic risk specific to sectors. The e-commerce channel not yet developed. Of course, the behavioral issues, the credibility issues. But you know what? The opportunities far outweigh the risk. Disruption is not negotiable. It will happen in our faces. Digitalization and digital optimization has come to stay. Personalization and the demand for products that meet customer needs is the future. Therefore, I appeal to all of us, industrial engineers. Africa needs you now. Africa needs you to come out and take us forward. Africa needs you to come out and provide the processes, the machines that will drive us to the future. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Most used word in one-liner in the last 1 year.
Awesome. So we just took off with the Q&A without you, but I think you'll be proud of some of our answers already. So we are running over. We had some technical difficulties starting, so we might have only 1 or 2 more questions from the crowd. Great.
Okay. I can hear you. Please go ahead with the question.
Yeah, just 1 second. We're giving a microphone. It's a lady.
Sorry, I was asking, I think I would like to hear Azu's response to the China comment.
Freddie in the crowd said China isn't good to us. We want to see if they're good to you. This is a recorded session, just so that you know.
So that's a comment, right? I honestly will say it differently. In China not being good to us, they have forced our hands to be good to ourselves. That's how I like to see it. You know, I think that the development in Africa would have taken longer. But right now, forcing our hands to rise up to the occasion, again, I like the word serendipitous because it just has to happen. So forcing our hands is making us then rise to the occasion. So yes, I agree, they've not been good to us, but they also have underestimated our ability to react and to be resilient. And that's what we need to do and to be.
Awesome. I don't think I've ever heard you say anything bad about a bad situation. But it's really good, and it is a mindset I think all of us as Africans need to start adopting and seeing opportunity instead of only despair. Can I get one more question and then I'm going to release you all for lunch? Yes.
Hi, Azu. My name is Jock. I'm the current president of SAIIE. We haven't had the opportunity to meet yet. First comment is I just wanted to say thank you for the kind words that you shared about the Southern African Institute for Industrial Engineering. I appreciate that, and I hope we can move forward and play a role in Africa as well. My question that I have is, you mentioned that people that want to get involved in Africa should have the right knowledge, experience, and temperament. So I think the knowledge and experience portions are reasonably self-evident. What would you say is the right temperament for someone to come into Africa and come and make a difference there?
Very good question. Interestingly, I was at the Millard event on Sunday night. You know, the 100, Millard, the 100, Millard recognizes the young people or people in Africa who are doing great things. And I think that the temperament is that of a positive mindset about Africa. You know, one of the things I had was Black is a movement, you know, Black not in the sense of skin color, but Black in the sense of the continent, the opportunities in the continent. So I'm trying to find that conversation. Give me a second. Yeah. So Black is a movement. The temperament should be B for brother's keeper, L for loyalty to the continent, loyalty to the products of the continent, loyalty to what is possible to do in the continent, authenticity in terms of who we are, where we are, facing up to our level of development, knowledge in terms of knowing what we know and knowing we don't know what we know, and then collaborating to learn what we know, you know. So that is a whole Black. I think I mixed C. C has to do with authenticity. No, sorry, capability, building competence, energy, and capacity. So it's brother's keeper, it's loyalty, it's authenticity, it's capability, it's knowledge. And I think that this was a quote from the CEO of Platform Capital. If you Google Platform Capital, you see that their focus is Africa. You know, that's making solutions in Africa for Africa and bringing the world in, or bringing the outside in, to understand the solutions that are available here. So that's the temperament. That's the mindset. You know, it has to be a vibe. We have to be proud to be where we are. they say the best place to be is down, right? Because you can only go up. And then the how do you put it? The atmosphere should be that of resilience. It should be that of resilience all the way. Yeah. Resilience in the sense that when we meet the challenges, the existing challenges should not dampen us in any way because they're huge. You know, I know that you said you've not heard me say anything negative about Africa. I face the challenges every day. I'm amazed that I cannot do things as easy as it is in other parts of the world. But resilience to know that we will surmount the challenges collectively is the atmosphere that we should have every day. So Black as a vibe, resilience as the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I think it just resonates again with making solutions that are fit for purpose, being positive, seeing opportunities, not getting stuck in despair. Azu, thank you so much for your time, your wise words. I know we'll be reaching out and collaborating with you many more times. Yeah, just a big thank you from all of us, and I hope you're also due for a lunch now, as we are.
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.